my self-published book, Rain. It is a psychological thriller about a group of young adults in a psych ward who get this new counselor that's trying to understand their mental illnesses and trying to understand them. But then the counselor shortly learns that these kids might not be crazy and that this place is actually making them crazy, all the while trying to figure out what's going on with him and his psychological demons and his problems. If you would like more information about this book, be sure to hit the link in the description box below. Supporting me and buying these books actually helps. So, Bones and All is a 2022 romance horror drama. It's 2 hours and 10 minutes, and I will preference by saying big spoiler alert if you have not seen this film. I will be spoiling it. Love blossoms between a young woman on the margins of society and a disenfranchised drifter as they embark on a 3,000-mile odyssey through the backroads of America. However, despite their best efforts, all roads lead back to their terrifying past and a final stand that will determine whether their love can survive their differences. The director is Luca Guadagnino, and I don't know if you guys have seen the show We Are Who We Are, but he also directed that. If you've seen that, that's the person that's working on this. I will just briefly say that I did enjoy that show. Now, this film, I've watched it on more than one occasion, and I can say that each time I found something new to admire about it. It opens up with a viewing of like this painting and a musical soundtrack. It starts off with this young girl who's invited by her peers to the sleepover, and she has to sneak out of the house in order to go, but she kind of ends up attacking the girl by chewing off the skin of her finger. Thus, her and her dad have to basically leave town, and she awakens the next day, and her dad has pretty much left and abandoned her, and he leaves behind a tape recorder where he recorded telling her the truth about what's going on, what he discovered about her and about her mother, and she goes along on this journey to basically find her mother. She's on this journey. She ends up meeting this other person who is like her, and this creepy old man basically named Sully. The scene with her and Sully takes on a disturbing tone from the change of music to the sound, and there are different combinations of sounds used in this scene, and it scurries through the scene almost. Eventually, Maureen and Sully feast on the elderly woman whose home they're in, and afterwards he shows her like this trophy hair braid collection of his, of all his victims, and they sit masked in blood. And there's something so creepy and eerily odd about the two of them just sitting at the table in blood as flies buzz around them, and she can barely talk about her mom briefly to Sully. And what's even more creepy is after she runs off, he just kind of watches her, and while she's on the bus, and he's just staring just very uncomfortably at her. And soon after that, she ends up meeting a young boy named Lee who's also like her, and the scene that they share together shows this beautiful sky view, and the dark tones of the movie are quite lovely to look at. It's dark, but not too dark, you know? There's a softness to it. And I believe due to the sky in the background as well as the contrast between Lee and Marine, they're the same yet completely polar opposites. Another thing about this film is its simplistic tone to it. There's so many small, simplistic human moments, despite them being who they are. For example, Marine looking at Lee's photos and his relationship with his sister, although not the best, it shows that there's humanity and a sense of normalcy despite their nature. Later on, they eventually meet another one of them, and he's with a friend who's actually human. And they obviously are sketchy guys. I mean, they're dirty looking. Typically, they look sus and sketchy, and they're kind of hillbilly. They're unkept hillbilly types. And the one of them says, "Bones and all, when you eat the whole thing." Lee, like, "You've never done that?" As if it's normal. Marine Lee and Marine she ends up leaving, like, not saying it, but, like, she basically gets up and is like, this is creepy as hell. And she gets into the car with the knife to the window. Like, they're sick. They're talking about eating their own. Then this man pokes at Lee, basically, like, you're a junkie, thinking you have it all together. Like, yeah, maybe love will set you free. Kind of taunting him with him and his relationship with Marine. And they get the heck out of there. Thank God, because it wouldn't have ended great. So I do want to say the prosthetics of the human bodies being eaten were done so well, especially when Lee chews a guy's nipple flesh off. Like, it kind of came off like gum. I found that to be interesting. I wonder how they did that. And Marlene learns more about her mom eventually, and the person who raised her mom, which is her adoptive parent. So she tells her where she is, and Irene goes to talk with her, but learns she's basically in this mental ward, and she reads the letter that her mom wrote for her basically in front of her. Once she reads it, her mom basically tries to attack her, and Marine storms off. She basically snaps on Lee and is like, I can't do this, I can't deal with this. She runs off while he's basically sleeping in the car. Then she ends up running into Sully, and he basically yells at her and he calls her a dumb C word, and it's like, I drove off next to you, like, I never done that before. And it's just like, you're a psychopath. She don't owe you nothing. Lee has these visions, these flashbacks of like him and Marine, and like him killing and bashing somebody's hidden, and I assume it's the guy, the hillbilly guy. It isn't said, but I did assume that he ended up going back to kill him. I don't know. That was, somebody let me know. And he told Marine he loved her. So I was also like, is this a flash forward or a flash back? I don't know. But it definitely showed his dark side that the hillbilly guy had mentioned. And you could see in Lee in his eyes that, like, he definitely held on to had that darkness inside of him. Lee ends up telling Marine he ate his dead dad and how great it felt, basically. Marine says to Lee eventually, let's be people for a while. And her voice plays over the sky views in the scene, and it's purple. And it's not the best, but it has this simplistic tone to it, and I completely dig it. I like the style of this film, and for a bit they are normal. They live in normal lives, working, going out to movies, and just being regular old humans. But eventually Sully shows up in their apartment while Lee is out, and Maureen is there alone, and he's over top of her. He's like slobbering his mouth. Ugh, just creepy as always. And he says, unfinished business. He's furious when Maureen tells him that her and Lee are together now. He's totally inappropriate in this scene. He has literally just dripping glob of spit coming out of his mouth. He's scary as hell. He's on top of her, and Marine ends up stabbing Sully to death with the help of Lee, and the entire show progression of the death scene was so good. It was great. The way that it was shot was just good in my opinion. It gave me film noir for some reason. And Lee, he starts bleeding out because he ends up getting stabbed. They learn that, Marine learns that Lee's sister Sully killed her because Marine finds the braid and it's her hair. And basically after that, he basically tells Marine, like, I need you to eat me, just eat me, bones and all. She ends up doing it, and it's like this weird love story, cannibalism thing that happens, and it actually surprisingly totally works. And it ends with with this scene of them in the field, and there's a beautiful sunset in the background, and they're topless, and she's behind him hugging him. And this film, I will say, was overall okay. The ending could have been better, not very strong, but I will say that for the first time watching this, I think people will enjoy it, especially people of this demographic and this age group. Being that I think I saw it multiple times, I was beginning to realize that it was not that great, and the visuals is good, and but I did enjoy the simplicity of it, and like I said, I think it's good for teens. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Comment below, let me know what you think about this movie, and how you feel about this movie, this cannibalism love story. Thanks for watching.